greenery, the fresh air, the mountains, and last but not least, the snow. Whenever I go outside of Colorado, I always get asked the question, where are you from? And I reply, Colorado. The first thing asked is, so do you ski? My answer is no. I'm a snowboarder, and proud. Snowboarding just hit the public about a decade ago, and the number of snowboarders has been rising. Right now, 25% of ski resorts business comes from snowboarding. But if you look at the slopes, you'll notice that most of the snow-loving warriors are skiers, but soon I think it'll be about half and half. It's now accepted worldwide, and it's in the Winter Olympics. And the first time I tried snowboarding was in 7th grade, and me and my friend Morgan took a half-day lesson, and I don't know where we would have been if we hadn't taken that lesson, because we spent most of the day on our rears. We would just fly out of control down the hill, and I almost broke my arm as I ran full speed, which wasn't very fast at the time, into a tree. And Morgan, who naturally is a beautiful skier, has been skiing since she was really little, decided to not snowboard anymore, and she plopped herself in the middle of the board and used it as a sled for the rest of the day. Needless to say, she stuck to skiing. I decided to go on and keep trying snowboarding, and so I've been doing it for about 5 seasons now. I'm really glad snowboarding started, and here's how it all began. It was in the 1920s that there was a thing called snurfing, and what it was a fat ski, and there was no bindings. You just put your feet on it and stood like you would on a snowboard that you would see nowadays, except there are no bindings. You just had to keep your feet there, and the edges weren't metal and they weren't sharp. So it's just like a big ski. And also in the nose of the snurf was rope. So you use the rope for steering because you really weren't stuck on the board too much. So you had to pull the rope with your hands. It's also kind of come from surfing, which is almost the exact same thing as snurfing, only in waves. I think everybody knows what surfing is. And also skateboarding and skiing have contributed to snowboarding becoming as big as it is. And it pretty much all started in Vermont. Vermont's where Jake Carpenter Burton opened his shop, and he did most of the invention of the snowboards we know today. He has a workshop in Manchester, Vermont, and it's still there, and you probably are familiar with Burton snowboards. They're a really big name. And also Tom Sims. They're the industry giants. They're the kind of, they were the first ones to go out and get the product going and are phenomenal snowboarders themselves. But they both started in Vermont. But Burton and Sims aren't the only equipment you can get. There's also equipment known as Airwalk, K2, Auction, Santa Cruz, and also Rosignol and Maro, which are known primarily for making skis, are now trying to switch over into this, not switch over, but do snowboarding business as well. When you go snowboarding, you gotta have the proper equipment. And as far as your physical attire, you should wear pretty much the same thing as skiers do. Although, as you've probably noticed, that snowboarders kind of have their own style. They usually wear baggier jackets, baggier pants, but you should definitely wear waterproof pants, especially if you're just learning, because you spend a lot of time on your rear. And always wear gloves, because when you get on the lift in snowboarding, you have to undo the bindings and then bind them back up when you get off. So it's always constantly your hands, you need to be able to move your fingers to get at the bindings. I recommend a jacket with a hood because it gets pretty windy on the slopes, and if you go to the top, it's really windy, and goggles are a must, I think, because, once again, with the wind, it's always good to have just in case it gets really windy up there. What you wear under your jacket and waterproof pants, it's pretty much the same thing you wear in skiing. Just long underwear would be good, and a long sleeve shirt, and always dress in layers, because you never know if it's going to get really sunny, and then you have the opportunity to take off layers and cool off. You need a snowboard, which costs about $200 for an okay one that gets you started. Boots and bindings, and boots cost about $150 to $200, and bindings also cost $150 to $200. And highly recommended is a leash, which you wrap around one of your ankles and it's strapped to the board, and that's just in case your board gets away from you. Should your bindings come undone, then it's attached. You don't have to go chasing it down the hill. And that costs about $1.50. It's not a big expense. There are 56 different companies who make snowboards. So you have a lot of options if you're going to go out and buy a board. There's also rentals, which cost about $24 a time. If you go a lot, it's really worth it to buy a board. And once you're all suited up and equipped, you're ready to go. Snowboarding, I think, takes a lot longer to learn than skiing. It's a lot harder to master. I've skied also, and I just couldn't get the hang of it. But with snowboarding, your feet are both just strapped right down to the board, and some people are uncomfortable with that. You need to have the movement of both feet going both ways, so you have better balance on skis, I think. It's a physically demanding sport, and you should, although most people don't, stretch out your arms and your legs before you do it. The basic stance, or there's two different kinds of footing. There's regular footing, which is with your left foot forward facing downhill, and there's goofy or fakie footing, which is your right foot facing downhill, and it's pretty much whichever you feel more comfortable with. I'm a goofy rider, so I have my right foot forward. And the hardest part about learning how to snowboard is the carving. It took me a whole season to learn how to carve. Basically, when I first learned, all I did was point my board on the hill and just go. And I just fly out of control because I didn't know what I was doing. But carving, you need to have your weight to go with a toe side carve, which is leaning towards your toe. You need to have all your weight on your front foot and lean towards the toe side. To have a heel side, you need to put your weight back on your back foot and then swing your front foot forward, which will get you a heel side turn. And then stopping is a heel side turn, but with more exaggerated movement, so you jerk to a stop and kind of create an edge for yourself. I'm really glad that snowboarding was invented. It takes up most of my winter time when I'm not in school and working. I highly recommend you try it because it's a great sport and it's really good for